This is the podcast that we ask our guests from in front and behind the camera, how did they get their foot in the door? What was the key to unlocking their success? What's their story?
You looking forward to giving those Frenchies a damn good licking?
No, sir. It's the Germans we should be licking, sir.
Don't be revolting, Dad. I wouldn't lick a German if he was glazed in honey.
Our guest today is much more than just a comedy icon. You may know him from Notting Hill, or perhaps as Cruella De Ville's right-hand man in 101 Dalmatians. Maybe you know him from Game of Thrones, or perhaps Lord Percy and Captain Darling in the beloved Blackadder. We chat about taking the piss out of Denzel Washington on the set of Gladiator II, turning down 4 weddings and a funeral, fighting to not get typecast, and why it's just as hard to get work as an actor whether you be 25 or 65. Our guest today is actor Tim McInnerny.
Hey man, how's it going?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for taking the time, man. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
I realise that you don't do many of these things very often, so I feel very honoured that you've taken the time. So I appreciate that. I want to chat about your new projects, but I want to go back and kind of ask you how it all started, because I couldn't believe how many credits you've got. I mean, I've always been a fan, and I didn't admit this to you when we worked together, but I've always been a fan of yours, and to see you going from strength to strength and playing so many different roles and so many great characters, I'm really intrigued to hear like how that started. What was the first step, the first sort of intrigue that you got into performing?
Well, first of all, I mean, I was I was forced to be in a school play when I was 14. I didn't want to do it. I really didn't want to do it. I wanted to be a writer, which is, as you know, it's kind of the opposite. That's a solitary profession, and acting is a collaborative medium. Or it should be, anyway. Not all actors will agree with you, as you know. But so I was persuaded by a school teacher to be to play Aegean in the Comedy of Errors when I was 14. Aegean is a 70-year-old man. And it was kind of, I mean, I can still remember it now. I was so like, oh, no, sir, please, no, I don't. Yes, you're playing. Okay, fine. And then the next thing I remember standing on the stage of the school hall, and 2 things struck me. I don't remember rehearsals or anything, but 2 things struck me. I remember kind of having a third eye on what I was doing and watching the scene around me and thinking, I mean, really objectively thinking, why am I the only person taking this seriously?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I the only person who's 100% concentrated on this? I was just kind of intrigued, And then the other time was in the same thing, doing a speech and looking out at the audience. And of course, the audience is all teachers and parents.
Mm.
And for once, you're 14 years old and you're 200 teachers and parents are listening to every word you say.
Mm.
And that feeling has never really left me, really. I still feel as though I'm playing to teachers and parents,
Did you have a teacher that you particularly, because I know that when I was doing plays at school, there was, a particular teacher that I was like, if they think that I'm good in this or they say something positive, then that was a big deal. Did you have anyone like that was?
I was extremely lucky. There were like seriously 3 or 4 teachers who encouraged me in all sorts of ways. I mean, my English teacher who gave me my whole, love of language and everything, and actually crammed me to get me into Oxford University. So I owe him a great deal. He's no longer with us, bless him, Mr. Campbell. And another teacher who one day presented me with a piece of paper and said, you have to fill this in. And I said, what is it? And he said, it's an application form for the National Youth Theatre, which I'd never heard of. So I filled it in and did the audition and went to the National Youth Theatre. And that was like, well, it just blew my mind. And just, that was kind of amazing because going to London, I mean, this is in a little town in Gloucestershire, Stroud in Gloucestershire, and going to London on your own, and living and working with sort of 60 to 80 kids aged between 15 and 18 was just, I just thought, yeah, this is great. I like this. Let's carry on doing this if we possibly can, you know.
Wow. So it's a real, that is, there's a lot of people around you that were kind of pushing you in the
Very lucky, yeah.
direction for sure.
Yeah.
Was there anything else early on that you were like, oh, maybe I could do this? I mean, we had someone on the other day that was like, I was almost a sailor. I was like, it's very different. Did you have anything like that that was kind of almost a distraction that could have pulled you in a kind of another direction, or was it always the acting?
Well, no, not at all. I mean, I was an incredibly pretentious child. So I was, I thought I was going to be a novelist and a poet, and I was very serious about all that. I mean, I guess the most thing people might be surprised about that not very many people know. So what I really wanted to be until I was like 13 was between the ages of like 9 and 13, 14. Well, just before I did this play, actually, I wanted to be a professional tennis player. That's what I wanted to be. That's what I wanted to be. And I was quite good. I was quite good. I was like, I could win under 15, under 16 tournaments when I was
Oh
12,
wow.
13. But then I remember I was very, very sussed as a kid, much more so than as an adult. And I remember uh, I remember really distinctly reading an interview. Uh, I was obsessed with tennis. I mean, I was the guy who would sweep the snow off the court in January so I could play on the public court, that kind of thing. And I remember reading that Bjorn Borg and Ili Nastasi were playing for their countries when they were 15. And I thought, no, no.
Yeah.
And I just went, okay, now I just do it for fun.
Do you still play now? Do you still get to sort of,
No, I haven't played for, I mean, I last played about 5 years ago, I guess. I mean, no, it's too hard.
That is nice that it's something so different to acting.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And very physical, and it's still a lot in your head. There's still a lot of, I mean, because I'd play with people and they were just playing for fun, and I was like, no, I really want to win.
Yeah.
I really want to win, and I'm doing tactics, and they're like, what's he doing now? Why is he doing that? Yeah.
So it sounds like you've always taken whatever it is that you're interested in and what you're doing at that time, you've taken it very seriously, which I think you can see in your work. I mean,
Right.
to start with you mentioned Oxford there.
Yeah.
Was that where because I'm trying to make the connection to, Blackadder and obviously the Oxford University Drama Society, which I believe you were a part of.
Yeah, yeah.
So is that...
Yeah, I mean, I was, so I mean, it's weird going, I mean, I wanted to go to Oxford because, I mean, the whole idea of acting, I mean, okay. I'm one of 6 kids. My parents didn't have very much money. I mean, we didn't know it at the time because you don't know. You just grow up in the world you grow up in. But of those 6 kids, bizarrely, I mean, my parents had nothing to do with acting, but 3 of us became professional actors, and 2 of the other 3 were amateur actors, and they were really good. They could have been professional, and it's just a weird thing. But I didn't kind of get it off them. It was just like that's part of our life. But I was also very aware that it was kind of terrifying for my parents because I mean, you think it's scary now, but then nobody knew anything about it. I mean, your parents didn't know what that world was or how you're gonna make a living or survive, So I thought, well, instead of going to drama school, I mean, I didn't have any I didn't have any doubts that I could get into drama school. That never occurred to me.
Confident.
I just thought, I'll try and get into Oxford or Cambridge. Then I'll be able to do a job and my parents will be pleased and blah blah blah. I think there was also a side of me that thought, I'm not sure I can go to drama college and be surrounded by other actors 24 hours a day. I think that would drive me nuts. Yeah. So but I also knew, I mean, like I say, this kid was very aware of things. That Oxford and Cambridge, rightly or wrongly, had a huge reputation for for drama and for comedy, and that it wouldn't do me any harm going there. I mean, the amateur student productions got national reviews in the newspapers. I mean, it's kind of
Yeah, that's crazy.
extraordinary, really. And you knew that people like McKellen had come through there and stuff. So it wasn't so crazy. But I mean, I had to work very hard to get there. But when I got there, the other thing is that at Oxford, which you don't know in advance, is that you apply to particular colleges, and they're all like separate universities. I mean, they have their own rules, they have their own traditions, so you kind of don't know in advance. And I was very lucky, and I went to Wadham College, and my tutor was a guy called Terry Eagleton, who was a sort of genius, really. We thought he was very old because he was 32. And I got away with an awful lot. I was doing like 3 productions a term,
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, straight away. I also knew people in the years above me who got me into the whole drama crowd. And then I was very weird because I always had this thing, which I still have really, of having a sort of double life in serious drama and in comedy, because I'd be doing a play during the week, and then on the Sunday night I'd be doing a review with Richard Curtis and Rowan Atkinson, and Angus Deaton, and
Yeah. Growing up, I always knew you from Blackadder, but then you would like things that I would like as a child. I would see obviously like 101 Dalmatians, and as a kid, but now growing up, seeing you in Game of Thrones and like all the like so many different parts, and it's drama. Then you've got comedy, but also I love the fact that with some of your performances, you're able to do a serious role, but still bring in that element of comedy in some of those roles,
sure.
which I think is such an art, because some actors just can't do comedy.
No, I know. No,
So difficult.
I'm aware of that. I mean, I try and do it both ways round, really. Is that I mean, again, it sounds very pretentious, but even when I was doing Blackadder, I would do a backstory for my character. I mean, I had a whole history for Percy and Captain Darling. I mean, some of which is written in the script, but and that wasn't for anybody else to know about. That was just for me, because I needed that grounding. I needed the guy to be real, however heightened the language is, because that applies to movies and plays. I mean, they're not, however bleak and gritty the subject matter may be, it's still an artificial construct that you have to buy into that world. The audience has to buy into that world, but you have to help create that world and create a character that lives within it. So I mean, that's why I loved. I mean, one of the reasons I loved doing Blackadder was that, I mean, particularly Richard Curtis is such a great writer of character, and that's, I mean, and unless you've got that, it's just a bunch of gags, and that kind of comedy I'm not interested in, quite frankly. And then, as you say, doing drama, I would, because you want to keep the audience off balance to a certain extent. You want to. I would try and find something funny or something witty or something ironic or whatever within a line, because then the audience think they can relax, and then you hit them with the next thing that's very serious. It's a game.
It's a fine art.
To a certain extent, and it's one of the things I learned from Ian Holme, who I think is a truly great actor, and I was lucky enough to know him quite well. I worked with him 3 times.
Oh wow.
And he said that you should play comedy very, very straight faced. That's, I mean, making generalizations, obviously, but also, but if you're doing drama, if your character is very, very sad, then you should laugh during that moment at the funeral, whatever it is, in that scene. Then find somewhere you can laugh, and it's heartbreaking. And these sound like tricks, but actually, and you have to, you have to invest proper characterization in them. But he wasn't wrong.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, he's an absolute, what a legend.
Yeah.
And when you look at a career like that, and then you look at your career, is there someone like that you worked in early on, maybe him, in fact, that you kind of went, that's what I kind of would love to emulate. That's a career I would love to have, because you've had so much variety in your career. It feels like it's been choices,
Well, I've always tried to, mess with the heads of casting directors by by mixing it up as much as possible. I get bored doing one kind of thing. I mean, I think I've always taken risks to a certain extent. Ian was probably the most important guy that I worked with, in that he was one of the leads in my first film, which I was I was really lucky with, which Weatherby, which is written and directed by David Hare. And it's like Vanessa Redgrave, Judi Dench, Ian Holm, Tom Wilkinson, Stuart Wilson, Marjorie Yates. I mean, it's just mind blowing, I'm having dialogue scenes with Vanessa Redgrave, and I'm 26. Like, it killed me. But Ian really took me under his wing and really, really helped me, because I knew nothing. I didn't know anything. I didn't know where to stand or where the light was or anything, and he would say things. I remember there's a big, long, in Weatherby, there's a large section of the movie which is a dinner party, like 12 people. It took like a week to film this. I mean, it was really, really complicated. A lot of people. And he's sitting at one end of the table, and I'm near the end near the other end. And I had, first of all, he said to me, Tim, don't use up all your energy in this shot. This is what they call a wide shot. It's just establishing the scene. You'll get a close-up. I went, really? Yeah, you'll get a close-up. So, okay. So then I did. Then eventually I got the close-up, and he was just down the other end of the table, and I finished, and I couldn't help. I looked at him, and he went,
nice.
I just thought,
that's what you need at those points.
That's what you need. That's exactly what you need. It's important. It's important, which is why I've always tried to be aware of how nervous or potentially lost or whatever very young actors are, or inexperienced actors.
I think as well, this comes up quite a lot on the podcast, but people presume that if you've got a lead role or a substantial part in something, that's where the pressure comes from. But I find the smaller the role, if you're a lead in something, everyone's expecting you to deliver. You've done all the homework, you've been you've done the backstory, all these things. But if you're a day player on something, I find that can be more terrifying, because you're walking into a working set, people are already in the flow of it, they don't really know who you are, you're just coming in to do this bit, and that can be worse sometimes.
Yeah. Well, also it's very tempting. You need to get somebody to allow you to relax. I mean, that's the hardest thing to do on a film set, I think, is relax. However tense your character may be, you have to be relaxed at the same time as that. You know what I mean? And that is very difficult, because if you're only on something for a couple of days, you're so desperate to make a mark that you can blow it by overdoing it, by doing too much, and it's very hard not to. It's very hard not to, because I don't know what you do, but
It's just pressure on pressure on pressure. If you
Pressure on pressure on
start
pressure.
adding,
But as you say, you know, if you're playing a leading role or a central role in it, then you've been working on it for weeks. You've done all the advanced prep, etc., because you've had the time to think about it.
mm.
But somebody who's cast 4 days ago and is coming in
Yeah,
to do this one scene, that's very hard.
that's I feel like the worst case scenario is when I had this once, and if it happened again now, I may rethink my decision. But it was the fact that someone had pulled out of a lead role in a feature film,
Yeah.
and this was on the Friday afternoon or something, and I got a call from my agent, and they were saying they've got an emergency, something that I think the actor was ill, something happened, and he'd pulled out, and they were like, "We need someone to replace him. We've got a list, and you're on the list. Is this something you'd be interested in?" And obviously, you're like, it's an opportunity, which is amazing, but
Yeah.
am I going to shoot myself in the foot by taking something that I'm not prepped for? I ended up doing it, but it was like, it was quite literally, they were like, okay, you're getting on the train tomorrow. You start shooting on Sunday. So I literally had
Wow.
a day really. And it's moments like that's the kind of, on stage naked dream. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's the worst,
yeah,
worst
exactly.
case scenario.
Which I have had. I have had that dream.
You've had
No,
the
that's yeah, that's terrifying. Exactly. That's a quandary. Yeah. Because if you take the chance and you get it horribly wrong, it could ruin your life. Because everybody, oh, you're the guy who did that. Oh God, yeah, yeah.
Have you
Which is
had
a horrible
have you
idea.
ever had any sort of moments like that in your career where you've not that you've regretted doing a job, but you've taken a huge risk and you've gone, I don't know which way this is going to go.
Well, I kind of do it. I mean, I, I feel as though I do it on a regular basis. I mean, like we're going to have a few words about the end. I mean, at the, you're in your mid 60s and somebody asks you to do a musical in which you have a tap number. Most actors, I think, I mean, I'm kind of proud to say most actors would probably go, no, I don't think so. Whereas I just think, yeah, fuck it. Yeah, come on. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's do
yeah.
that. Let's try that. I mean, every time I go to work, regardless of what it's in, I want to go in feeling every day, feeling excited and a bit scared. Because that's what gives you the edge, and it's important. You have to be in control of that excitement, that fear. But it needs to be there. I don't want an easy life. I find it boring. So I
Yeah,
do things as different as possible.
100%. And you kind of skirted on it a little bit there, but what advice would you give to like an actor coming into the industry now, or perhaps your younger self when you were starting out? Is there any sort of advice you would give?
Well, if it's your younger self, then it doesn't really just apply to actors, actually, does it really? It's like
It could be
I
anything.
really wouldn't want I absolutely would not want to be a teenager again. You know.
Painful time.
I mean, I would say to every teenager, don't give yourself such a hard time
Mm,
because you're always giving yourself a hard time. You always think, however many friends you've got, however well you get on with your parents, you're still completely alone and nobody understands you,
mm,
you know? And just give yourself a break. But also, I mean, as a young actor or somebody starting out, um, and this is difficult, and I'm not sure whether I did it successfully or not, really. You miss something. You don't get many chances for a big break,
mm,
you know. I mean, anybody can get that chance to do with just being looking right, being in the right place at the right time, whatever, you know. But try and cultivate the mentality to be aware of that chance when it happens.
mm,
Because when it's gone, it's gone. And you may not get another one,
mm.
you know. It's easy for me to say that, but I mean, there are things you think, things you look back, you think. I mean, I spent my first 5 years, 5, 6 years, because that's what you did then, doing regional repertory theatre. You know, that's what you did, and you learned a huge amount. You learned more from being in bad productions than you did from being in good productions. Good productions, you just thought you were great. That's all. You didn't learn anything. Bad productions, I would work out what went wrong and why, with either with me or with the director or the other actors, whatever. You know, I was kind of analytical about what was wrong, and that was sort of important. But you know, there was a thing. Basically, I was doing a lot of really good, interesting work around the country, places like the Royal Exchange in Manchester, which is still probably my favorite theatre, actually. It's an extraordinary place in the round. Very few, I think there's only 2 or 3 in the country, actually. Um, and and then my first job in London was at the Bush Theatre, which there, it was a room above a pub, but it was probably the coolest place to work in London. It was kind of extraordinary. I mean, you'd be doing a new play in a room above a pub, and you'd look out at the audience through and see, Richard Gere or Susan Sarandon, I mean, it was just extraordinary. And then they come back afterwards, and it's like, this is so strange. And so I went from being somebody who was well respected outside London to being in this big hit. It was Terry Johnson's second play. It's called Unsuitable for Adults. And Mike Bradwell directed it, who's probably the most important director I've ever worked with, because he changed the way I worked. And he cast me. This is 1985, 4, 5, long time ago. And he cast me 3 months. I wasn't the lead, but it was kind of the showiest part. He cast me 3, 4 months before anybody else, because there was a play about alternative comedy, which is so it was a very hip play to do in the mid-80s, and I was playing a guy who was an impersonator, not a female impersonator, and a mimic, a professional mimic, and I had to be really, really good. So he cast me way in advance, because you couldn't Google things then, obviously, it didn't exist. So I had to spend months recording things on tape off the TV in case somebody came up on, who was in the play, because I had to do impersonate 19 different famous people during the course of the play. 19, I remember really distinctly. And he had to be good. If he wasn't good, the play fell apart, because that was the point, was that he hid behind, he hid his emotions behind these other guys, And that was kind of extraordinary. That was very hard work and a bit scary, but I did that. And
as you say, it makes that
right?
As you say,
yeah, I mean, now it'd be
a lot easier
really,
now.
really easy. It wouldn't necessarily be easy to do it, but you'd be able to find all the.
You'd have the tools given.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
But what happened then was that, having spent all these years in rep, I then did this, 6 weeks doing this play at the Bush, and as a result of which the casting director for Weatherby saw me and got me a meeting with David Hare, who then cast me in my first film, and then he wrote, from Weatherby, he wrote a part for me in his next place, and then I was doing Pravda at the National Theatre playing opposite Anthony Hopkins, and that all happened in the space of a year.
Wow.
So that was kind of extraordinary.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I think there's a definite theme where it feels like you've worked with people early on, and then you've worked with them again and again and again, and it feels like collaboration has been quite an important part of your career.
Well, there comes a point, if you can last long enough, that I mean, I'm not sure if I ever do a job now where I don't know at least 2 or 3 people, you know. So there's a certain amount of inevitability about that side of it. But I mean, it's not. I mean, I wish it could be a deliberate thing that was absolutely my choice, you know. And I dare say, if you're Tom Cruise, you do have that chance. But I'm not. I don't quite have that power, unfortunately.
We'll be back to the episode shortly.
Check out the Patreon at patreon.com/life and film. And don't forget to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy this episode, please leave us a positive rating. Add us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Life and Film Pod. Essentially, please like and subscribe everything. It makes a huge difference. Thank you.
This podcast is sponsored by Betterhelp. Do you work in the film industry? Are you freelance? Or perhaps you have a 9-to-5? No matter what you do, mental health affects us all. I struggled early on in my career with the uncertainty of if and when I would ever work again, struggling to pay my bills, or simply with anxiety. Don't know about you, but being an actor, it's very important for me to maintain structure in the downtimes, and I found not only exercise, but talking to someone for me was a game changer. And so Life in Film has partnered with Betterhelp to provide you with access to the largest online therapy service in the world. And it can all be done from the comfort of your own home, from a phone, tablet or laptop. No commute, cutting down travel costs, and most importantly, it's affordable. With over 1,000 therapists in the UK, Betterhelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise in mental health. If you need someone to talk to and you're thinking of giving therapy a go, BetterHelp is a great option. And being a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/life and film. That's betterhelp.com/life and film. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support us, get early access and exclusive content and episodes, click to join our YouTube channel and become a member now.
And back to the show.
I mean, it makes a difference. I mean, like you read a script and you're not 100% sure of it, but if you've worked with the director before, you know that you can be open, you can play around with it, you can invent, you can take risks, and that the script isn't, not that, I mean, if you've got a great script, then it's not a problem, obviously, you know. But if something isn't great or there are problems, then you need to be able to play around with it. And, you know, some directors are up for that. And indeed, some actors are not up for it either. And which is fine, but you need to, it's nice to know in advance. And if you've worked with those people before, then it's going to be fun. I mean, I think however serious, this is offered a tangent, but however serious the subject matter is, you've got to have fun. You have to enjoy it. In fact, you know, comedy's really, really hard work. Comedy is really hard work. And you can do a fantastically bleak, gritty drama, and everything around what you're actually doing in the scene is great fun, because you have to. Otherwise, you go nuts, you know.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. It must also be when you're doing comedy and it's not working. That must be very unfunny when you're trying to you're trying to get the beat right, or you know something's not quite working. That must be a nightmare. I love to ask how, you know, to Blackadder is something that was so big, and you know the two characters that you played in it was so iconic. But you've done a very rare thing. You've been able to move on from that, be known for it, but go off and do other things that you're now known for. Was that a deliberate, like, did you make choices to kind of show that you could do other things along the way? Was that a deliberate move away from, you know, roles like that? You could have done the easy route and played that character for the rest of your career if you wanted to. Was that a kind of, it must have been quite a hard thing to do in the beginning, but you've managed to do it now. Was that?
It didn't, I mean, sorry, the decision wasn't hard. As far as I was concerned, the decision wasn't hard, because I had no interest in being the next, you know, comic icon and doing that for the next 50 years and making lots of money. And, you know, I wanted to be an actor. So I mean, in fact, even within the series, I mean, I obviously did the first two series as Percy, and then turned down the third series because I didn't think there was anywhere else to go with Percy apart from anything else, and I didn't want to play it anymore. And I thought 2 series is enough, otherwise I'm stuck with him for the rest of my life. And I mean, I did a guest episode, but I didn't do it, and Miranda Richardson didn't do it, and Stephen Fry didn't do it. We all did guest episodes. But so then what happened with series 4 was, 2 years later, Richard and John Lloyd and Rowan asked me if I wanted to come back, and I said not to play Percy, only if you write me a completely different character. So that was me saying to them, write me a different character. That's how Darling came about. He was originally called Captain Cartwright in the first week of rehearsals, and we're thinking,
Not as funny.
there's got to be something funny. We got to think of something humiliating for him. It's got to be something humiliating. I think it was Stephen. I mean, it may have been John Lloyd. I can't remember, but I think it was Stephen who said Darling, and we just thought, yeah. I came up with Kevin because I thought the combination was pretty humiliating, actually. Not that there aren't great people called Kevin, obviously.
Obviously. Oh yeah, I mean that me and my dad still to this day quote Blackadder and some of the don't slouch, darling, and all that. It's like it's just in.
This is how stupid we were. We thought the name was funny, but we hadn't worked out that whenever Stephen called me darling, we didn't know. It wasn't until we got in front of the audience and we were recording it when he goes, "Come over here, darling."
Come on, darling, we're leaving.
Oh God, yeah, of course. That's how dumb actors can be.
That's brilliant. Well, sometimes it's like that. You stumble across something, don't you? And that's sometimes where the best moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. But after that, I had no intention of staying in that. I mean, I got lots of scripts, on a regular basis for a couple of years of playing tall, dark, thin, stupid people, and you just, I've got no interest. I could do this in my sleep, but I've got no interest in doing it whatsoever. Also, it's very rare that you come across writing that's that good, and Richard's a genius. So,
well, you obviously
and you're working with Rowan as well,
Oh, the whole thing is just it's a moment in time with all the people that were. But you work with Richard Curtis obviously on Notting Hill, which is something that is iconic in itself, and such a lovely role. And again, completely different. Like if you saw those two things back to back, same writer, same actor, completely different performance and project. What was that like? The process of working with him again, but on something completely different like that.
Well, I remember having a conversation with Richard. I mean, because we were mates. I mean, at university together, blah blah blah. But so I remember having a conversation with him. First of all, I can say this. I won't be specific, but I was supposed to be in 4 Weddings and a Funeral, but I was doing the Trevor Griffiths play Comedians, and that was more important. I didn't realize 4 Weddings and a Funeral was going to be so big, obviously. But I should have known. But anyway, so 4 or 5 years later, whatever it is. But 4 years before making it, I remember having a conversation with Richard in a car where he talked about that he was writing this script, and it required, he'd kind of written himself into a corner because you could get a great actress to play it, but really it kind of the part of the female actress did have to be played by the most successful actress in the world, or it didn't work. It just wasn't funny. So he'd kind of written himself into a corner. I said, well, you could get, you could get, this is entirely artificial. I hadn't even read it. And you could get like, Michelle Pfeiffer or whatever. You can get, somebody beautiful who's great and is still an international film star. And, but he'd kind of written himself into a place where it had to be Julia Roberts or it didn't work. And that's like, Richard, come on, please.
He's optimistic though.
Insane, yeah. And then he took the script to New York to meet her, and she read it and said yes straight away.
Wow.
The way you would. Even
It's
Julia Roberts.
Scripts. It's just
Even Julia Roberts. It was such fun. We had such fun. We had such a good time. It's one of those things where, I mean, we spend most of our time patching up scripts or cutting corners to make something work, whatever, whether it's on film or on stage or whatever. But to do that script was just it sounded like you made it up, but Richard had done 20 drafts over 4 or 5 years. That's the kind of guy he is. That's what he does to make it sound like that. And it was just bliss. You didn't have to do anything. It's just great fun. Just had a ball.
That's mad, isn't it? That it just shows you though how long it can take, and it does show, because Richard Curtis, when he brings out a project, it's like an event, because it doesn't happen that often.
No, absolutely.
And that's obviously why it's, it takes a long time to get to that level of dialogue and that script. But I feel like I'm going through your greatest hits now. I'll stop doing that. But to bring it up to I mean, now, genuinely, since we worked together, which is probably 6 or 7, maybe
I guess
a while ago now, I've just been enjoying seeing you in all kinds of things. I mean, I didn't realize you were in the new Gladiator, and I was in the cinema and I was like, just like, with Ridley Scott. Do you ever look back from where you started and think, holy shit, like I've done all right here, I've done some amazing projects and some amazing characters? Or do you not allow yourself to do that?
Well, I mean, the honest answer is that contradictory things come into my head at the same time, which is that I've done some amazing things with some amazing people and great parts, and at the same time, I'm thinking, yeah, but I didn't get that, and if I got that, then that could have been, I think if you're too self-congratulatory, then you get too comfortable, and I've never wanted to be comfortable. I mean, it's like I say, I want it to be a little bit scary all the time, not too scary, which is what it's like when you're out of work for too long, as we know, and there's no guarantee about that. You can have 3, 4 great projects, one after the other, and then nothing for 9 months. So, and that happens when you're 25, and it happens when you're 65. It doesn't make any difference.
I'm glad you said that though, because every actor has that, and they go through that, and no matter how successful you are, there's always going to be, it's just peaks and troughs, isn't it? And I think it's so important for someone like yourself, who people look up to, and they look at their career and think, wow, I wish I was doing those things, to hear that. Because I think young actors listen to this and they think, well, I've been out of work for a year, 2 years, and it's been really hard. But it's the same for everyone. And it can be really hard.
And it is very hard. I mean, and it's one of the things, I mean, it's I think one of the hardest things for actors to deal with is that to do the job properly, you have to be emotionally, psychologically open, vulnerable, available to any influence, on the set or in rehearsals, whatever. But at the same time, you have to be tough enough to be able to survive in a business that can be very cruel. I mean, it is for good or ill, it is a business in which you're trying to be creative and relatively artistic, and that's very tough for you, for the writers, for the director. You know, it's sometimes feels like you against the producers. Not always. I've worked with some fabulous producers who've been extremely helpful, and I mean, I did a movie where one of the producers remortgaged his house so we'd have another week's shooting. I mean, you know, things like that. It's like, that's kind of amazing.
More producers like that, please.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
I guess they can't all be doing that. Going out of work left, right, and center. Yeah,
I don't think Ridley's going to have to do that.
No, I think he's all right.
You know,
I think
he's okay.
Right. Well, talking of Gladiator, you've worked with some amazing people throughout your career. What was it like going toe to toe with Denzel Washington in that outfit?
The outfits are it's really comfortable. I don't know why we don't wear them now, quite frankly. You know, I mean, it makes a difference having the weather in Italy as opposed to here, I guess. But yeah, you wouldn't want to wear it today.
Be a bit drafty, yeah.
Well, it's very challenging. Is the true answer. I mean, first of all, you know, I'm a very experienced actor and relatively successful, but you're doing, I mean, as you know, nearly all my scenes are with Denzel Washington, a lot of them just the two of us. And he's been an international film star for 40 years. And it's very kind of different and intimidating. And he doesn't take prisoners, you know. But we, very early on, I mean, like the first day, I thought, I can't put myself in a one-down situation here. I have to take a risk of seeing whether he's going to like me or not by taking the piss. Is what I did. I kind of mocked him in public. There was a big silence. There was a big silence, and he looked at me for a long time, and then he said, "I know, it's terrifying." I thought, "I'm out of here. I'm on the next plane home." Okay, goodbye, Malta. And then he went, "Okay, yeah, I see what you did there. Okay, all right." And then we were kind of friends, and he trusted me, and we I mean, you can see in the scenes that we're playing. We're actually playing with each other, and that's really important, you know.
I was gonna say that there is. I could tell when I was watching it. I was like, you two look like you're having fun there. Not too much fun, but you look like, you know, the characters. You're working in a way where you're kind of. It can't be all script, and it felt like you were playing for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And Ridley's Ridley's absolutely up for that. You know, I mean, it's working with him is extraordinary. It's really extraordinary. I can see how and why actors wouldn't enjoy it. But for me, it's almost like doing a play. You've got something like between 5 and 10, 12 cameras on every single setup. I mean, it's just. But what that does is that so one camera or another will be on a close up of you as well as on 4 other people and a wide shot, and you know, it's kind of remarkable. And what that does is that it completely frees you up physically, because you can go anywhere in that space and there's a camera watching you. So you don't have to hit a mark, or I mean, you do sometimes, you know, but it's kind of, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It means you play the whole scene. You're not doing my shot, his shot, that angle, this, you know, you're doing the whole thing in one. I mean, you do a 5-page scene in 2 hours.
Yeah, wow.
Instead of in 2 days. You know, it's kind of, it's kind of extraordinary.
I saw, I can't remember the exact amount of days they took to shoot Gladiator 2, but I remember like someone said it in an interview somewhere. I was like, what? How did they shoot it so quickly? And obviously that's, you know, they're shooting the hell out of it with so many cameras. That's crazy.
It's kind of amazing. And he doesn't, he's not one of those directors who gets through the shot list on the day and then thinks, oh, it's only 3 o'clock. Let's we can do some more stuff with that and do different angles. Ridley goes, okay, well, we've done all the shot list for today. See you tomorrow.
He knows what
He's
he
going home
wants.
at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's just really cool.
Yeah. I mean, if
If
anyone
there's
can
one
do
thing
that,
actors like, it's as you know, it's the old joke. You like getting the job, but getting the time off, that's great.
we're going home early.
Yeah, right.
It's so funny. Yeah, it's extremes, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's brilliant. That sounds like that was a great, what fun to just
It
sort
was just amazing, and you're in that thing. I mean, I've never done a movie that's in that bracket in terms of cost. I mean, that's $200 million or whatever it is. Um, most movies, even expensive A-list movies, you'd build a bit of the Colosseum and then you'd move it around, or you'd put in different extras and you change the lighting, blah blah blah. No, they build the Colosseum. They build the Colosseum, and the things like the Emperor's apartments were huge.
Yeah.
I mean, you get Denzel wandering around the Emperor's apartments going, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
And it kind of, the great thing for actors is that it you don't have to pretend, you're really in the place. So it takes away all that extra layer of pretense you have to put on. You're there. You're in the great costume. You're in the amazing set, and it's real.
Well, that's the best case scenario, isn't it? If you can really just be there.
Absolutely.
Which I feel like there was a period where a lot of green screen was coming in, and now they seem to be moving the other way. If they've got the budget, they're building the sets again, which is lovely.
Yeah, I agree.
But to ask you about your latest project, The End, and you did touch on it, and now that you've said it, it being a musical and you have to do a dance, and it's kind of, that is pretty terrifying. What was the experience like on that?
Well, it was really tough. I'm not going to lie. It was a really tough gig. It was very hard work. And it was a long job as well. I mean, we had like 6 weeks rehearsal.
Wow.
Because you have to, because you're rehearsing songs, you're rehearsing dances, And I'd never done tap before. The only time I'd ever danced was playing Frankenfurter in the Rocky Horror Show in the West End in 1990. So,
Little rusty.
And so I was rehearsing the dancing at least 2 hours a day, 6 days a week for 5 years. I lost 25 pounds.
Wow.
It's really tough. It's really hard. I have huge respect now for people who do musicals.
You don't fancy doing another one back to back? Just
No, thank you.
tick that box. It's all good.
Yeah, done that. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, it was an extraordinary experience and the most amazing cast. I mean,
yeah, it's an incredible.
And there's only 7 of us. It's kind of incredible. And I had this fear that Tilda Swinton would be this impossible kind of indie ice queen, who'd be terribly intimidating. And actually, she's like the nicest person in the world and looks after everybody. She's the mother on the set. She's a remarkable person. Apart from being a brilliant actor, she's an extraordinary person. I loved her to bits. I mean, everybody was great. I mean, we all became, with the difficulty of actually getting this together, we all became very, very close, and we're all still in touch.
That's nice, because that can be very rare.
Oh, sure.
It's one of those industries, isn't it, where you make it. It's like almost like a family for a bit, and then sometimes you never, see them again. It's crazy.
Exactly. You swear you'll stay in touch, but
and it's funny because a lot of people all live, maybe in London or whatever, and it's just people are always off working and doing other things, so it's very difficult to sort of find a time and a place that
exactly. I'm actually going next Saturday, the 1st, February the 1st. I'm actually going to see Lenny James playing Big Daddy in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof at the Almeida. It's the last night, so we'll have a drink after.
Nice.
He's such a cool guy. He's a very cool guy.
Well, I mean, I've taken up way too much of your time. I've realised. I've just looked at my clock. I'm like, sorry.
I have no idea.
More like nearly 50 minutes. I said 35, so we've stretched that a little bit. But thanks so much for taking the time. And
Great pleasure.
man, it's really good to see you again. And
Good to see you,
yeah,
man.
I'd love to hear your story as well. It was just, I've been a fan since I was a kid, so like to get to talk to you about this. I mean, we kind of chatted a little bit when we were on set, and I was always asking you about Blackadder, but to really go into depth and to hear that story and like get your advice and stuff is really cool. So I really appreciate it.
No, it's a great pleasure. I mean, if second only to acting is being able to talk about yourself. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, cheers, Tim,
Cool.
and have a
Thank
great
you,
day,
Elliot.
man. And all the best.
And good luck with you. Cheers,
Thank
man.
you. Take
See
care.
you again, I hope.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode and want to support us, get early access and exclusive content and episodes, click to join our YouTube channel and become a member now. Thank you to our guest Tim, and thank you to Rachel at the Artist Partnership. As always, thank you to our sponsor, Betterhelp.